All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. And a huge shout out to everybody for their patience as we got started today. The internet is a tricky thing, and some days it just does not cooperate, but we've got it all sorted now, and we are excited for an awesome event. In fact, this is going to be an awesome week in general because tomorrow is World Water Day. So we have some experts joining us, scientists, explorers, documentary filmmakers, who are talking to us about our most important resource, our water, threats it's facing around the world, efforts to conserve and protect it, and just why it's so darn important, not just to us, but all life across our planet. So it's going to be a great week. If you head to the website, exploringbytheseat.com, you can see some of the other events we have coming up, including tomorrow on World Water Day, when we'll be live with the Water Brothers, which should be a lot of fun. All right, let's jump and meet our guest today. Andrés Russo is joining us today. He is a geoscientist, conservationist, author, science communicator, and educator who became the first scientist given permission to study the boiling river of the Amazon. So he's a tri-citizen growing up between Peru, Nicaragua, and the United States, all countries where he has active projects. He founded the Boiling River Project as a nonprofit dedicated to the understanding and protecting of the sacred boiling river in the Amazon. He brings together modern science, conservation economics, and traditional Amazonian knowledge to make all of this happen. Let's bring him in live with us today. Hey, Andres, how are we doing today?
Hey, how's everybody doing today? I know you're all, where are you guys actually? I'd love to know.
We've got classrooms joining us all over. Let me just fire some off here for you. We've got obviously here in Canada, but we also have New Mexico, Virginia, Arizona, Toronto here in Canada, Maryland, Nova Scotia out on the East Coast.
Wow.
A really great crew. New York, lots of classrooms hanging out with us today.
Very cool. Well, hey guys, bienvenidos, welcome. My name is Andrés, and I'm so excited to be with you guys today because, I mean, water is a super important issue. I mean, across the board. Personally, most of who we are is water. I mean, we can't survive without it for very long, and it is really one of the things that makes our planet just unbelievably special. So I'm so excited to share some of our work with you today, mainly about the boiling river of the Amazon. So this extra special water system in the heart of the Amazon. And you know, as we get into this, I really want you guys to think about the role water plays as sort of this connective tissue in everything, in who we are, in what we drink, right, in the food that we eat, or even in making all of the products and clothing that we wear. Water is, we use it for everything. You know, I was once listening to a talk that said we call it earth, but we should really call it water, right? Because at least on the surface, that's what you know, allows us to really thrive. So I don't know how you want to do this format, Joe. If you want to do questions during, questions at the end, let me know what you guys feel more comfortable with.
Yeah, let's let you take over for a bit
Okay.
and take us into that world, and then we'll turn the students loose.
Fantastic. And you know, just for good measure, we actually have some brand new water samples from the boiling river of the Amazon that I am shortly going to analyze with us today. So they'll be hanging out with us here as we move forward. So there we go. Let's start. I'm going to share my screen, and I've put together a little presentation that I hope you will enjoy. Share. All right. Can everybody see me? Hopefully we're going in, and almost spinning wheel. There we go. Gotcha. Everybody seeing this okay?
Looks
All
good.
right. Well, so again, I'm Andrés Russo, and our story is going to take us to Peru today. Peru is in South America. It is quite famous for Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, the famous citadel of the Inca. We are an Amazonian country. Brazil is the country with the most Amazon rainforest. Peru is the country with the second most area wise. We are right on the Pacific coast there. We have the Andes Mountains, so you're looking at some of the tallest mountains in the world. And we're going to dig into a really special ecosystem today that is all about water. The river that you see behind me, I'm the little guy crossing that wooden bridge there, but that is the boiling river of the Amazon, and that's what our focus is going to be on today. So, like Joe said, I'm Andrés Russo. This is part of my research team here. We are the Boiling River Project. There's actually about almost 30 people that were not able to make it to that photo. So it's a big project, multidisciplinary, people from all over the world. I think we've got like 13 countries represented, over 21 institutions. So it's a big deal. And it's all about this amazing place, the Boiling River of the Amazon, and what it can teach us. I myself am a geothermal scientist, so I actually specialize in heat, Earth's heat, right? And you might not think of it as an everyday thing, but life on Earth would not be possible without Earth's heat. Water would not be in this wonderful liquid form that we can actually use without without the specific temperature and pressure conditions that allow us to live. So actually, in a lot of the geochemical work that I do, it's always so important to say, for example, at standard temperatures and pressure, because you and I at standard temperature and pressure for humans, we do great. But if you put us inside of a volcano, we won't do so great. If you put us at the bottom of the ocean, we won't do so great because it's freezing down there and the pressure's intense. So humans will not do too well. So really important to remember, we are so unbelievably blessed to live in this incredible niche that is a mix of that water, temperature, pressure, and then just like a gift of science. So I'm a geothermal scientist. Geo means earth, thermal means heat. So again, looking at Earth's heat, that's what it's all about. A big part of that is to work on geothermal energy. So right now, obviously, we have an energy crisis going on, and we are working to find and promote and advocate for clean, renewable, sustainable, in this case, geothermal power. But I'm a fan of all renewable types. We just need to get to a green tomorrow as quickly as possible. And a huge part of what I do is conservation work. So I'm very blessed. This is one of my great mentors and teachers, as well as collaborators and friends, is Maestro Juan Flores from the Peruvian Amazon. He's of Ashaninka lineage, and he is somebody that I work regularly with, and you'll see him come up again in this story. Conservation is all about protecting our sacred spaces. One thing that I've learned from him is the word sacred. When I went into my work, I used to think, oh, of course, the sacred as a church, the sacred is the synagogue, the mosque, right, the temple. But now I look at it a little differently, especially in light of the current climate crisis that we're facing. For me, what Maestro Juan has helped teach me is that to be sacred means to give life. And if we respect what is sacred, we will give life. In this case, water. I hope you can see me, but I'm moving around a little bottle of water there. We need water to live. We need clean water to live. We need clean air to live. And again, that is why so many cultures before us said, hey, these things are sacred because they give life. And I think that conservation aspect is really important. Conservation is something that's as old as human history. It is not a new thing, but it might be repackaged in a little newer way these days. But I also do a lot of science communication work, spreading these messages out to the public. I host different shows at this point. So if you ever watch the Nat Geo Spanish channel, wave and say hi. So we'll go into cool places like the temples underneath, a tunnel underneath a temple in Teotihuacan. This is one of my favorite episodes. And we basically explore that connection of human history, our wonderful Earth, and explore some stories there. And what's interesting about this, I'm not just bringing it up because, okay, cool story, but that tunnel that you see in pink dug underneath this ancient pyramid, it was dug about 1,800 to 2,000 years ago, it was actually dug to honor water. It was dug because humans from a very early moment knew the importance of water, because without clean water, we cannot live. So you can read more about my work online in the magazine, other formats. And obviously, the work that we're doing here, I think, is so important because, frankly, I mean, you guys are literally adults from the future. You know, you are the future. And I hope you realize how important your voice is. I would rather hang out with you guys than, well, a lot of adults, I'll put it that way. So again, thank you, Joe, for this platform. Thank you, all the teachers, for opening up this opportunity. And for all of you kiddos out there, get involved. Please feel free to reach out. We've got projects with a lot of students. Actually, we've brought students to the Amazon before. And even if we can't do that, there's always ways to get involved with a million different organizations. But if you're passionate about something, chase that. And I tell that to, you know, students in the first world, my students in indigenous communities or the Amazon. So yeah, it's important. We're all in this together, and there's a lot to be done for sure. So now let's focus in. Let's take us to the tropics. We're talking about the area on planet Earth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. There you see the lines there, so the little red area. And especially a wonderful spot called the Amazon. This is the world's, one of the world's lungs. It is an absolutely massive area. The Amazon basin is about 90% the size of the lower 48 United States, right? It's huge. It's a huge area. There has been jungle consistently in many parts of this, going back in some parts up to 50 million years of jungle ecosystems. In other parts, it has changed and it's much younger jungle, but it's just for me, I really see the Amazon as one of the greatest celebrations of life I have ever experienced. I mean, getting out of the jungle or going into the jungle, everything is moving, everything is slithering, crawling, buzzing. Life is everywhere. You cannot escape it. And a big part of that is water, for sure. And what's funny is when you get out of the jungle, at least for me, it's changed the way that I look at the rest of the world, because frankly, the rest of the world can sometimes seem sterile after you've gotten used to being in the jungle. And I think that that's amazing, that there can be places that are just such celebrations of life. So again, this is a huge area, the Amazon basin highlighted here. And we're looking at South America with the northern part, not the southern cone, that northern part there in green. So you can pinpoint where you are and try to see, you know, how you connect to it. And specifically this magical place called the boiling river of the Amazon. Now, this is one of the most stunning places I have ever seen. And I hope sincerely that all of you get a chance to go down and visit it. You know, it actually, I first heard about it in a childhood legend. So as a boy in Peru, my grandfather, that's my grandfather, he would tell me all these wonderful stories. And one of them was about the Spanish conquest of Peru, right? A darker part of our history, sadly, but that leads us to this story. The conquistadors, right? The conquistadores is conquistador, someone who's looking for plunder, for gold, for glory. They conquer the Inca civilization. They you know, but they're still hungry for gold. There's this gold lust that's almost insatiable. New waves of wannabe conquistadors keep coming to Peru looking for another civilization to conquer because they want more gold. And the Inca, as the legend goes, out of vengeance, tells them, "Go, yeah, do you want more gold? Go to the Amazon. There's a city made entirely of gold there. You're gonna love it." You know, so the Inca are like, yes, you know, they're going off to the Amazon on what is, you know, the Inca tried to conquer the Amazon a couple times and they were unable to, and they knew exactly what the Spanish, according to the legend anyway, what the Spaniards were, they were sending the Spaniards to do. And the Spaniards were going off looking for gold, looking for glory, and they were excited. They were looking for a lost city called Paititi, El Dorado in Spanish, made entirely of gold. But what they end up finding were fierce warriors and powerful shamans, dense jungles, giant snakes that could swallow a man whole, spiders as big as your hand that ate birds, and even a river that boiled. And that was part of the legends. So years later, following this legend and asking around, I would ultimately get the chance to meet Maestro Juan. And well, suffice to say, it's not just a legend, right? This place is real. And thanks to Maestro Juan, who his people always knew about this place. It's been a very sacred and special place for them. And he was gracious enough to, give me his blessing to become the first geoscientist to receive the indigenous blessing to study this place. And also he asked me to help them bring it to the world responsibly, which is a really important thing. Just to show you how amazing this world is, the boiling river is, number one, it's hot. It's really hot. If you're drinking a cup of coffee, your normal cup of Starbucks coffee might be between 130 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And, so in the 30 to 40 degrees, well, that's more than that. I'm blanking out on the degree C range for that one. I apologize. Normally, I maneuver that one much better. But in science, we generally do everything with degree C, though. So here you see 86 degrees C, 187 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature of this water. And it's a sense of scale at 47 degrees C, at 117 degrees Fahrenheit, you and I start to cook. So remember that magic number as you're looking at these numbers. 47 degrees C, 117 degrees Fahrenheit. That's that like ouch temperature, right? So we got to be careful with that. So think of how much hot water is flowing through here. The hottest temperature I measured got to 99.1 degrees C, which is about 210 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a massive place. The widest point of the boiling river gets to be about 30 meters or about 100 feet wide. I'm the blue dot in the background, and that's a thermal waterfall. So if I were to fall into that water, I would not last very long because this water was actually close to 70, 75 degrees centigrade, let's say 170-ish degrees Fahrenheit when we took this picture. The deepest point of the boiling river gets to about 4.5 meters or roughly 15 feet deep. So again, close your eyes. Imagine how much hot water is flowing through this place, how wide it is, how deep it is, and the fact that think how much energy it takes to heat up 1 cup of water for your hot chocolate, your tea, your whatever. And this is a massive river of it. It's so massive, you can actually see its steam plume from the air. It flows for about 6.24 kilometers, which is roughly 4 miles. And that stationary cloud that you see is all the boiling river. So again, imagine going into your kitchen on a cold day, right? And seeing that steam come out of a pot, right? That's what we're talking about here. Its indigenous name, or at least one of the indigenous names, is Shanaitin Pishka, which literally means boiled with the heat of the sun. And this is a part of the boiling river. There's about 100 meters, so roughly about 330 feet of just bubbling waters that look like this. And you can understand why it would be called boiled with the heat of the sun. I find that to be a beautiful name because it's a hypothesis, is the way I look at it. It's indigenous science at its best, looking at direct observations of, okay, this thing's boiling, and in using the best knowledge available, the maximum source of heat came from the sun. Therefore, boiled with the heat of the sun is a good hypothesis. And we know that it is actually not boiled with the heat of the sun per se. It is boiled because of extreme temperatures down deep in the earth. But that's it. It adds to the stories, and it adds to this long and beautiful legacy of people coming together and trying to understand our amazing world around us with our best hypotheses possible. There's a lot to learn because one of my favorite things about working with Maestro Juan and other people in the community has been how spiritually significant sites have also almost always been very important sites for geothermal studies in Western science. This site, for example, is the first place where you start seeing hot spring injection in a major way on the boiling river, and it's called the Yakumama. You might see a giant serpent head, right? This is the home of a giant serpent spirit said to be 60 feet long, who in the legends gives birth to hot and cold water. And you need to remember, in the Amazon, the serpent or the snake spirit is a really important one. If you close your eyes and imagine the way rivers curve and meander through the jungle, the way that water flows, serpents are often associated with medicine, with wisdom, with knowledge, and of course with water in the Amazonian traditions. So please remember that this is that context, right? So at the same point where in the legends this giant serpent spirit, the Yakumama, gives birth to hot and cold water, we actually see, from a scientific standpoint, the same area being attributed significance because of the fact that you have a hot spring, you've got cold stream water, and this is where the boiling river really starts, as a cold, small stream. But it gets huge. It gets much, much bigger. This is a little rapid section of the rapids there. That water is very, very hot. Again, about 87 degrees, 86 degrees C, 187 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hotter than your Starbucks coffee. And if you touch that water, you're gonna come out of that with second and third degree burns. In fact, sorry if you can't hear it, but like you hear the river in the background there. This is a special mug we had made that shows you how quickly a second or third degree burn would propagate on your, a third degree burn actually would propagate on your skin using this thermal paint. If the liquid inside that mug is hot enough to burn you, the mug turns white hot. If it's not hot enough to burn you, it'll be black. So hopefully that gives you an idea, without me sticking my hand in there, of how hot it can get. So one of the great perks of working there is, well, I'm a tea drinker, so instant tea. The water is unbelievably clean, has honestly no taste. In fact, we found that Evian, as in like the fancy, bottled water, is actually clean. Is actually less clean, as in there's more minerals in Evian than in the boiling river. The boiling river's waters are overwhelmingly very, very clean, and that's something truly outstanding given its size and history. One of the things, though, you do have to be careful working in this area, because if you fall in, you can cook, and I see it a lot. I've seen all sorts of animals fall in, and sadly, even people have fallen in, gotten seriously injured. But if you guys go to places like Yellowstone or many of the amazing hot springs that you have in Arizona or in Canada, please be careful with geothermal systems. They can be very painful. And in the worst case, it's really important to have a lot of respect of these systems, because they can be quite dangerous if we don't have respect for geothermal systems and you fall in, right, you can cook. But the jungle alone around this site is incredible. You've got amazingly huge trees. There's a guy for scale. You've got every now and then you wake up. This is I was waking up to find a little tarantula, good sized tarantula, about the size of my hand there. Very friendly, just picked her up and, got her out of my room. A really nice thing. But you got to worry, because those hairs that you see on her, she can flick them off and it's very irritating to your skin if that happens. And I mean, if you bother it more, then she'll whip out her huge fangs and try to scare you. But overall, if you're respectful of these animals, they'll be respectful of you. You have amazing bugs. I really enjoy seeing the bugs. We call this one a papazo in the Peruvian Amazon. Very sharp spines on its legs. You can see them digging into my fingers there. But it is that one rode in almost. It sounded like a motorcycle when it was flying. But it's just such an amazing world. Such a special ecosystem. You get tiny poison dart frogs like this one. That is my finger for scale. So this thing's itty bitty. It's less than an inch. This one it was. And again, that is extremely toxic. It's not venomous. It's not going to bite you and inject venom into you. It is toxic though. And it is best not to touch those. We see a lot of them. It's always so cool for me to see how animals also respond to the boiling river. And there are sections of the boiling river that are warm, that you can, as a human, swim in. And we're not the only animals that take advantage of this amazing geothermal feature. Here you see a baby caiman that is doing his best to camouflage in while he's taking in the hot springs. And then here, very obviously, you see a leaf toad. I don't know if you guys see her, but she's hiding right there. This is looking down from the top. But sometimes you got to be very careful where you step, because some of the animals here have evolved and adapted to fill these amazing niches. A leaf toad, if she were to tuck in her legs, she would have just totally disappeared. But if you don't see her, she's right here, right there in that upper right-hand corner-ish, right on that leaf. One of my favorite animals from the jungle, we call a sachavaca, tapir, a tapir. And they are actually cousins of the rhino. So you can really see it when you look at their feet. So here's a baby, actually the same one that you saw giving me a kiss on the chin there, but this one is a baby. He was a rescue. Sadly, some poachers got to his mom, but they were able to rescue him from that and kind of protect him in this space. So hopefully you saw his feet. You see this wonderful nose sniffing around. Tapirs are so unbelievably important for the jungle ecosystem. Love a good chin scratch as well. They spread seeds, and that is one of their main important functions. They're also incredible swimmers, and they're just so freaking cute. I love this animal. Extra funny story. The shaman was like, yeah, when they were looking for some place to rescue this tapir, he was like, my daughter wanted a dog. She had seen the movie Lassie, I guess, and she's like, she wanted a dog name, and she wanted a collie. So we'll just name him Collie. So this tapir was named Collie, like a Lassie dog. It was kind of funny. But again, it's a spectacular ecosystem that sadly is under threat, and it's something that we do need to protect. When I first got there, it was about an hour by plane, about 3 hours by dirt road, another hour by motorized canoe, and an hour hiking into the jungle in 2011 when I first went. But since that time, there's been a lot of issues, with deforestation, advancing of deforestation, and it is a really concerning trend. Sadly, we are in the central Peruvian Amazon, around here, zone A. So we are at one of the reddest of the red zones of Peruvian deforestation, and sadly, a lot of it, well, there's a lot of illegal mafias at work in the area, organized crime groups that go after lumber, and especially now during the COVID era, with lumber hitting record prices, this demand and infringement has only grown, which has been pretty sad. So, but before COVID, we were losing about half a soccer field every minute. This number has grown in Peru as far as how much Amazon we are losing. And sadly, across the entire Amazon basin, before COVID, we were losing about 2 soccer fields every minute. And this number has increased a lot, sadly. And in particular in Brazil. Brazil right now, the numbers, some of the largest estimates have said that Brazilian deforestation has increased by 40%. So that number is depressingly high, frankly. But this is a tropical trend across all of the tropics, and we are sadly losing about 30 soccer fields every single minute across the tropics. And this is something that sadly needs to be stopped. And it's something that you can do, right? And a big part of that is understanding, protecting. Where you buy, what you buy is really important. Is the chocolate bar you're buying, does it have palm oil, for example? Lowering your meat intake, as crazy as it sounds, minimizing how much cow, for example, you are eating. Because sadly, that is one of the main, in our area, that is the number one driver of deforestation. You have a process of people coming in, they'll poach any animals they need to poach, identify some trees that they can chop down and sell for money, and then literally set fire to the jungles to clear everything for pasture land. And that is something concerning. And that pasture land can impact the entire water cycle for all of the Amazon. And this is a very sad process we're seeing right now. And it's something that we do have to watch out for. So I'm gonna move forward. I think I got a little bit into we're taking a little longer than I thought I would. I'm taking longer than I thought I would. So and I wanted to get to questions, but yeah, the cattle farming is a big thing. And please notice too, deforestation is not just an issue in the Amazon. It's not just an issue in Brazil. I now live in Dallas, Texas. And even in Dallas, you see this similar trend. There's the roadway, there's the forest, and there's development. You see this in Texas, you see this in Virginia, you see this in Canada, you see this all over the place. We have some native ecosystems that are essential to protect. We've got a lot of homegrown deforestation anywhere. And this is a case from the United States, but literally you can do this in Canada, you can do this anywhere in the world. Those grids that you see there, that's not a result of the pixelation. That's real. You see deforestation everywhere. And if we're going to win this global fight against deforestation to protect our forests, that protect our waters, we need to start this in our own backyard. So do what you can, when you can, where you can, even if you start with your school, even if you start planting native trees in your school, in your backyard, planting butterfly gardens, something as simple as that. If it's in your power to do it, that's a brick in that wall of protection that you can lay down. So in the battle for our planet, every battlefield counts. And with that, gracias, muchachos. Thank you so much to all of you for your time. If you have any questions, honestly, Instagram is the easiest way. Instagram or Twitter are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Facebook, not as much, but you can try. Instagram and Twitter are definitely the best ways. But yeah, so I'm eager to take any questions. All right.
All right. Andres, thank you for that great presentation. It is such a beautiful place on the planet, the boiling river, the Amazon as a whole. And it is just shocking to see how we're losing these special places and not thinking about the impact that's going to have on a global level when we lose massive areas of forest like this, holding so much precious and important water.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, well, let's turn our classrooms loose. If you're tuning in via YouTube, you can pop some questions into the live chat. But let's start meeting some of our crew. Let's go to New Mexico first. We've got Miss Nilvo's crew hanging out with us. I'm going to bring them in right now. Here they come. Hey, New Mexico.
Hey, New Mexico.
Hello. What
Hey.
river so hot? Is it a near vent from a nearby volcano?
So
I totally missed that. Can you come a little bit closer, nice and loud?
She's asking what makes the river so hot? Is it a vent from a nearby volcano?
that is an amazing question. And this is something that I've been working to answer for the last, frankly, decade. So what's weird about the boiling river is that in Arizona and then Arizona, New Mexico, that area of the United States, there's all these amazing volcanoes from when the US was trying to rift apart, right down the middle. At the boiling river, that's not the case. The nearest active volcano to the boiling river is over 700 kilometers, over 430 miles away. It's actually a non-volcanic geothermal system. And what happens is, and this is what's really cool and what I really like about the original indigenous name, Shanaitin Pishka, boiled with the heat of the sun. So tonight, I want all of you to go outside and look at the moon. And when you do, I want you to remember that the moon and the earth used to be the same thing. And this is geology. We know this, right? We look at chemical balances. About 4.5 billion years ago, you had two Earth-sized bodies doing circles around the sun, right? They, boom, slam together, partially melt. And that's what the densest stuff goes to the center. That's the core. Less dense, the mantle. Least dense, the crust. And that's why we have all this. But a piece of that collision didn't come back. It stayed doing circles around us, and that is now the moon. So Earth and the moon used to be the same thing. What does that have to do with the boiling river? Well, Earth's heat, the things that power Earth's heat engine, about half of the heat that we get comes from radioactive decay inside the Earth. So underneath your feet, right? But the other half comes from that collision about 4.5 billion years ago. That heat is still with us. About half of it is. So what's really cool about the boiling river's waters, literally this right here, most likely fell to the earth as rain, seeped deep into the earth, deep into the ground, and started getting heated up, because the deeper you go into the earth, the hotter it gets. When you get to about the core mantle boundary of the earth, temperatures get to be close to the surface of the sun, those same temperatures. So as far as the boiling river's waters go, you don't have to go too deep. It actually can only go down a couple kilometers, a couple miles, to start getting the temperatures that you need to see, that we see at the boiling river. So water that goes down into the earth, heats up, and then comes back up via a hot spring, which is like a plumbing system, right? The cracks and faults that allow you to get water from deep in the earth up to the surface And that is what causes the boiling river's heat. That's why it's so hot. So great question.
Very good question. A great hypothesis about a volcanic vent being close by.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool story as well, where the heat does come from. Mr. McGill's crew is joining us today. Some sixth graders in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Let's bring them in. I think
No way.
is handy for a question. There we go. Hey, Thunder Bay.
Okay, go for it.
From the boiled river, how do you get, like, from the hot air? How does it, like, when it gets to the trees, does it like burn the plants and stuff?
Oh, that is such a good question. So I'm so excited to hear your question because we have an entire microbiology team, botany team, and they're looking at exactly that. I wish I had put some of these images in there, but if you go to your local creek, you'll often see tree roots going into a creek or a river or a lake. Well, at the boiling river, if those roots touch the water, they burn. So in a lot of cases, you see burned roots that are start to grow sort of in the direction of the river's flow, which is kind of interesting. The vapor from the river itself causes an absolutely fascinating, what we call a microclimate. So right now, just to show you how great of a question that was, we have an entire team at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, led by Dr. Ken Feely, who is looking at that question. Because with climate change, with global warming, what we are seeing is temperatures across the world and across the Amazon are increasing. But the microclimate at the boiling river, natural system, no one's messed with it, no one's messed with it, right? It could give us a really good indication of what an extreme temperature Amazon might look like, what plants can best adapt to it, and what we can do, if anything, to help keep the jungle in a healthy balance, even if we start seeing some of the worst impacts of climate change sooner rather than later. So that's an excellent question, because absolutely that steam, the hot water, even the hot water underneath the surface, heating up the rocks and the soils, does have an impact. And so excellent question. Well done, guys.
All right, very cool. Let's jump to another group now. We're going to go to a place called Chalk River with some grades 6, 7, and 8s hanging out with us. I'm going to bring them in now. I see someone front and center. There they are.
Where's Chalk River?
What is your favorite part of the river?
Ontario? Okay, so Chalk River, I have to say something super important. I love the name of your area. One of the most important things of doing exploration work in the Amazon is something in Spanish we call toponymia, toponyms, which is we look at place names just like Chalk River, and we use those names to deduce what we might see in the field and try to prepare for it. So just by hearing that name, I can already start picturing geologically in my mind what might be around your area. So that's super cool. And I also like your shirt too. That's fun. But as far, no, sorry, go ahead.
What is your favorite part of the river?
My favorite part of the river is a place called the Sacred Waters. Imagine being in like a little canyon, and you are literally breathing in hot air, and it's hot and thick, and it's like being in a sauna, and you can sort of feel the air going into your lungs, and like feeling hot air inside your body is a really crazy feeling. The rocks themselves are really hot, so you can lay down and sort of, after a long day's work of lots of hiking, you can really take all that in. And you just see all these bubbling hot springs that they don't smell like nasty rotten eggs. A lot of geothermal systems can smell really bad, right? You've got different, sulfur, right? So think of a rotten egg smell that comes out in some of the waters, but not at the boiling river. The boiling river is a very clean system, very, very clean. And it's got a sort of like earthy, clean, earthy mineral water to it. Smell, if that makes sense. But being in a place that envelops you like that you just feel totally surrounded by the like being hugged by the vapor is really wild. And there's a beautiful legend that I really always enjoy, that each hot spring has like a little snake spirit living in it. And the heat is actually its bite. So if you get bit, it's the heat. So it's always, every now and then the river will, you know, splash you a little bit and you'll get like a little bite. So it's always cool to see how much richness we can get from one place. And for me, seeing the world with both eyes like that, enjoying the cultural perspectives, the human element, as well as the deeper scientific understanding from a Western science perspective, it's just so cool. I hope you guys get to go out. I really do.
All right, awesome. Great question as well. This time we're going to go to Richmond, Virginia. Some fifth graders hanging out with us right now. Let me bring them live into the call. Where are they hiding? There they are.
Hey!
How we doing, Reams Road Elementary?
Hello, how are you doing? All right, we have Bailey here with a question.
What is the hardest thing that you have to do?
Ooh, what is the hardest thing I've had to do? At the Boiling River, oh man. Getting boiled alive as like a real thing you have to worry about is not fun. And I mean that seriously. Like the scariest thing about working at the Boiling River is definitely like poachers, because people are definitely the scariest by far, because people are crazy and have guns. But aside from that, the physically most challenging part of working at the Boiling River, we've got this one spot that we call the Spider-Man wall, because the Boiling River is, I mean, imagine it being, it's maybe about like as wide as like a lane and a half of your typical road. The water is extremely hot. It's like 190 degrees Fahrenheit, so 87, 88 degrees C-ish. And again, those are rough estimates. I really need to get better at, like, I'm trying to get the conversions to keep everybody happy. But hot enough to kill you for sure. And at the Spider-Man wall, you've got a lip that's like about this big, and you have to like crawl up and just like, you know, and you're doing that with a lot of gear. So it can be very, very, very dangerous. And it's really just difficult. You have to worry about thermal muds in other areas. So where you step, it looks like a hardened crust of mud, but it's hardened rock, but it's actually a hardened crust of mud. So you can step and, right? So think about quicksand, but now think about thermal quicksand. You know, like you fall in and you start cooking immediately. It burns you really bad. It takes seconds for, this is gross, I'm sorry, but for your skin to bubble up like a plastic bag full of water. So it's really nasty and it's really dangerous. So doing work under those conditions can be really difficult. And for some reason, wasps really like to set up their nests in a lot of these very difficult places. So sometimes you're there like, oh my gosh, Spider-Man wall, and then suddenly it's like a swarm of wasps, and you're like, oh no, you know, like, but yeah, it's nonetheless, it's all part of the fun. And you know, there are different ways to calm wasps down. And at the end of the day, the slower you go and the more respect you show everything, and the more respect you have for the place that you are working, the better off you'll be. So slow and steady not only wins the race, but makes sure you don't boil alive. And that's, boiling alive is not something I want to do.
I can see that's a pretty good saying to have, especially on that wall. We hosted your colleague Rosa not too long ago. And
yes,
a little video clip where she was doing her first time on the wall, and she was pretty nervous, pretty scared, but she did it, and she's pretty proud of it.
Oh, she's a rock star. I think she's like the fourth person that we know of to ever get to that part of the river. So it's a big deal to get out there, and it's an amazing spot because it's, one of my favorite things. Sorry, I have to say this about the spot. Sometimes the wind will catch in the right way in these canyons. So you'll see these sort of like mini spirals, mini tornadoes of vapor coming off the river. And it's just really cool.
Very cool. Well, we're going to grab a grade 8 class now. Miss Wagler's crew is hanging out with us from Kitchener, Ontario. Let me bring them into the call here. There they are. Hey, grade 8.
So like, how does the water not evaporate? Like, or how does it, like since it's like over 100 degrees, how does it not evaporate?
It does evaporate. And that is part of the system. So if you are, there is always water pumping into the system. In a similar way, I wish I had my thermal camera, right? But if you take your arm and if I was with you right now, I'd pull out my thermal camera. It's a high precision thermal camera that's so powerful that I can see the hot blood running through your veins going through your arm. And that's a similar way to how the earth works with geothermal systems. You've got your earth arteries, the big faults and cracks. Those are the major thoroughfares of hot water. And this is a system that is just pumping out water. I mean, you have to remember that like the Amazon basin is massive. This is, by some estimates, 20% of the world's fresh water. Like the Amazon River is bigger than the next like 17 rivers combined. I'll get you the exact reference to that later on. But the important thing to remember is there's a lot of water, not only on the surface, not only in the air and the clouds, but in the subsurface as well. And it is getting hot and it is pumping out at the boiling river because it's this amazing earth artery.
All right, very cool. Well, our camera classrooms, if you do have time to stick around for another round, Andres, I should check with you if you still have a few more minutes.
I got about 2 more minutes, so I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, we'll grab one more question online, then we'll let you go because it sounds like you might have a meeting after. So I think this is a great question.
I'd much rather stay here with you guys, though.
Yeah, no, don't worry at all. So Miss Donovan's class quickly would like to know about life. Fish and things like that probably couldn't. Is there any life that can take those waters, that can live in those waters?
Oh, great question. So 47 degrees C, 117 degrees Fahrenheit seems to be this sort of magic number where we start to cook. That goes for fish, that goes for bugs, that goes for frogs. But there are organisms that can take a little bit hotter. We have found a couple of bugs that can actually withstand a little bit hotter, but it's the microbes, the microorganisms. That's what like my research partner, Rosa, she's spearheading that. And yeah, microorganisms called extremophiles, because they are extreme environment organisms, right, are really thriving in that environment. And it's something that we are studying because, quite frankly, in fact, if you walk away with one thing out of this, geothermal systems are so unbelievably important. They are literally hotbeds of evolution and some of the oldest ecosystems we have on our planet. They are so important, in fact, that my bet is that every single one of you has directly benefited, especially now in the COVID era, from a product directly derived from a microbe living in a geothermal system in Yellowstone. That's PCR. The polymerase chain reaction, the PCR test that you do for COVID, that we have that thanks to a geothermal system. So it's without understanding these systems, without protecting these systems, we can lose access to literal life-saving or essential technology that can really improve human lives significantly. So thank geothermal systems for PCR.
All right. Amazing, Andres. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We're just going to have you back again. We always love having you. So much excitement around the work that you're doing. So thank you for being with us today during World Water Week as well. A huge shout out to our classrooms. Thank you to those on YouTube. Thank you to those tuning in camera spots. Let's bring them in if they want to do a quick wave here.
Actually, better yet, I'm going to do a quick selfie here. We can't do in-person selfies. Everybody, say cheese.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hanging out today. All right, guys. See ya. We're going to sign off for today. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.